For our first story, we have my 32 female husband, 33 male, said I was being difficult because I didn't know where a jar link, 32 female, was making dinner the other night. I had prepped everything when my husband, 33 male, asked if I needed anything. I asked him to grab me the jar of marmalade from the cabinet. This is a small cabinet above the counter with only 3 shelves, so not a large space to look. As I'm trying to prep the chicken, he begins asking me what shelf it's on and what does it look like. I tell him, I didn't know, name, it's just a jar. Which he responds by saying, why do you have to be difficult? I find the old jar from the fridge and show it to him, and he finally finds the jar. I finish cooking dinner and am upset because I didn't like being called difficult and didn't feel like I was being difficult asking him to independently find a jar when I was doing everything else to make dinner for our family. When we talked about it later, he said it was the type of voice I used, implying that he was stupid when I could have just told him where the jar was. I said that I did all the prep work and made dinner and asked him to find one thing, and it frustrated me that he couldn't do the one task I asked him. I didn't know where specifically the jar was, so what did he want me to say? I also argued that me saying, I don't know, it's just a jar, and him calling me difficult were not the same. He stormed out mid-argument and texted, I'm sorry for storming off, but that conversation was going in circles. We both think the other was out of line and we'll just agree to disagree. I don't think we should just agree to disagree. What to do? That's the end of our first post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, I got to take your side on this one. That would be annoying. Can you get the mustard out of the fridge? What shelf is it on? I don't know, look for it. What does it look like? It's mustard. A yellow bottle. Can you come show me? OFFS. I will just grab it myself. I wouldn't drop it because the problem is just going to continue to exist. You can go. Greater than I want to talk about what happened during that moment. Greater than yes, I was annoyed and used a tone. You saw how busy I was juggling everything. I appreciate you asking if I needed a hand with anything. Greater than I asked you to get a jar for me. Which resulted in you being faced with a problem. And you dumped that problem on me to solve when I want you to solve things on your own. Greater than it's a small cabinet. I told you it was a jar of marmalade, that should have been enough of a description for you to look for it. Greater than if you want to help me out, I would like for you to do me the full favor of finding it yourself. Otherwise, if I needed to point it out to you, what was the point of asking me in the first place? Greater than this was something you could have done yourself if you actually put in more effort looking for it instead of half-assing it. Greater than that's why I was annoyed. Next time, please go the full mile and take it upon yourself to handle all of the responsibility instead of looking at me to help you out with a simple task you could have easily accomplished yourself. Our second commenter says, ask him if he is that clueless at work. Our third commenter says, this is an example of weaponized incompetence. He had on tiny task in a sea of tasks that you were doing and he still needed your assistance. I completely understand why you're frustrated. For our second story, we have my 40 female good guy husband 40 male is making a bad judgment call that has ruined our relationship. How do I show him the error of his ways? Very long story short, my husband of 15 years became suspicious of me about 5 years ago. During conflict, he began accusing me of lying frequently and adopted all sorts of passive-aggressive behaviors. Prior to this, our bond was strong. We adored each other. I used to think we had something of a once-in-a-lifetime love story. So as the conflict kept coming, I remember being confused mostly but also just boiling angry when he began behaving in ways I would have sworn were beneath him. He started to not like our best friends. My lifelong bestie, Jane, who was my maid of honor and more importantly her husband, Joe, saying we were spending too much time together. Our kids grew up like cousins. During this time, I would meet Joe at the gym in the mornings. My relationship with my husband kept going down the toilet and I was completely shocked when one day during the time I was trying to apologize and be accountable for what I could be in terms of our dysfunction, he blew my mind when he suggested I was having an affair with Joe. Joe had never once crossed a boundary with me. We've loved each other like brother and sister ever since he became part of Jane's life. He also adored and was a great friend to my husband John, names all changed obviously. John couldn't be convinced nothing ever happened and began going through my phone and demanding I don't text Joe anymore. At first I pushed back. John never exerted this level of control before and I hated it and it wasn't warranted. But every area of my life became more under surveillance and he began believing he found evidence. I told him he wasn't allowed to make the calls of who I spoke to. My philosophy was pretty much like, geez dude. It's 2023. Get over this and I'm allowed to text guys and still be a faithful and loyal wife. John sidestepped over me and told Joe not to text me anymore, which made me livid on principle. Joe's relationship to mine wasn't ever more than a friend, but I felt John was fracturing our marriage because he wasn't respecting my boundaries. John began to trash talk our friends. Joe and Jane began being concerned, rightfully, and tried to intervene. We sat down, all four of us, and John downplayed everything. John went to the church and asked for support. The men in church affirmed him something was suspicious and that I was too entangled in my friends' lives. He went to therapy and told me his therapist said I was emotionally abusive. I kept getting more angry and honestly not doing great handling the loss of control and the accusations. I took a step back. Things kept getting worse. At one point I gave up Joe and Jane to try to show John the first chose him, but it still was a chaotic mess. Now, fast forward to present day. I live separately. The amount of accusations that have come up have just piled one on top of the other. I adore my husband and I'm still so confused about everything that went down, but my mental health spiraled beyond belief and I had to get away from him. I felt constant attack, shame and anxiety around him. When I wasn't under suspicion, I was being caught. All the while hearing how Joe is a terrible friend. Jane is in on all of it, an accomplice to the affair. And I'm a selfish, abusive person. Which frankly, I can be selfish but I don't think I'm abusive, but I will say, my reactions became explosive there for a while. I need to pause briefly to say I've been friend with the same crew of people for 25 years. I have close meaningful friendships and John now has all new friends and is starting to tell me our kids can't be around our friends' kids. They're all bad influences. His new friends' kids are okay though. Here's the thing. John is a good man. He is kind. Friendly. I always loved his sense of humor. All of that is gone between us, but I still cannot let myself let go of the marriage. I stayed with him for 3 days over the holiday and he awoke one night sure he saw me swipe my phone closed real quick after sending someone a selfie of me. That didn't happen. Since then, he is trying to tell me he trusts me, but he has also affirmed several times that he knows what he saw. John is functional in every part of his life except for this paranoia that he has with me. No amount of explaining have been able to break through, and I can't be around him for more than 24 hours without the tension boiling and my own emotional state derailing. The move from our family home saved me. John keeps asking me to come back, but he's still committed to this affair idea. He asks me to come home and he even lays on the romance and I fall for it. We have short, brief moments of confusing connection and then this falls apart. If I'm near him, I shudder every time my phone rings. When my friends text or call, it's like someone killed a puppy in the room with how he shuts down. Why can't I help him see? Why do I feel like such a creep for not being able to fix my marriage despite my innocence? That's the end of our second post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, have you considered that his paranoia is part of broader medical condition that he should be treated for? Have you spoken to his doctor about it? Our second commenter says, I'll tell you right now from years of bitter experience, you can never prove that you are not cheating. My ex also swore he saw me doing things I didn't do. He once swore blind he saw me in a car with a man driving down our street, but no such thing happened. Nothing I did, or didn't do made any difference. I ended up isolated from family and friends. I even had 2 extra children at his request, ending up with 4 in total, in an attempt to prove to him that I loved him and didn't want to be with anyone else. John wants you back, but only because he doesn't want anyone else to have you, and he wants to continue to control you and be abusive. My advice is to accept that he won't change, because he doesn't want to. If you stay, this will be your life forever. Our third commenter says, usually when someone is accusing you of cheating, it's because they're cheating. For our last story, we have how to stop my 20 female, mum, 50 female, from keep wanting to sleep with me. I, 20 female, had always had a hard time with trying to get to sleep on my own bed. When I was 16, I had to fight and rearrange all the bedroom furniture so that I could get my own bed and room. But even though I had my own bed and room, every time I tried to sleep in my own bed, my mother would come into my room and physically drag me out of my bed and pull me to her bed, or she will come in to guilt trip me into sleeping with her, or she will be very irritating and not let me sleep, link. Keeping the lights on while staring at me as I attempt to sleep, or she will threaten me with ultimatums, link. If you don't sleep in my bed with me, I won't love you anymore, I won't talk to you anymore. Then you have destroyed our mother-daughter relationship. Then it means you don't love me. Why don't you love me, etc. She just doesn't accept my no for a no. I usually get so sick of it that I just give up and surrender and sleep on her bed. This has been going on for 4 years, and I'm just tired of this. Yesterday I got to sleep in my own bed, and now my mother is giving me the silent treatment. Is there any way I can get her to stop this? And no, I cannot move out, financial issues. Need to wait at least 1 more year, or move in with friends or other family members because I don't have either. TLDR. My mother makes me sleep in the same bed as her even though I have my room and bed, and I want her to stop. Any advice? That's the end of our last post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "You need to move out. This is extremely unhealthy of her to be doing. Unfortunately, I don't have advice on how to get her to stop wanting to do this. I really don't think anything will stop her besides you no longer living with her." Our second commenter says, "Holy shit. OP, go find a roommate to move in with immediately. No disrespect, but that's fucked and your mom's needs some professional help with whatever trauma is plaguing her." Our third commenter says, "Your mom needs to spend a considerable amount of time with a therapist. You could use some too as a way of learning how to set boundaries and stand by them. This is not a typical mother-daughter relationship. I think you know that, and your mom does too. Has she always been this way? Has she ever had a romantic partner, and if she has, how has it affected your relationship? I wish I had some advice for you other than therapy. That is the long-term goal, but you need short-term solutions right now. For now, just stay strong and understand that this is your mother's problem. I hope you can get her to understand that you need and deserve some space and privacy." That's all for today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.